Hey there, fellow Play on Tabletoppers. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Hey there, fellow ploppers. Let's go over a few easy painting tips to boost the look of your models on the gaming table. When my buddy Space Marine Steve reached out to me recently to paint up his squad for an upcoming episode of Kill Team Challenger, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to share a quick and easy method to get your models looking great on the gaming table. And that full video can be found over on my YouTube channel. But why stop there? Today we're going to go over 5 simple tips to help you boost the quality of your minis so they really stand out on the gaming table. Tip number 1, edge highlighting. Okay, we all know what edge highlighting is and how many hours it takes for us to actually pull this off in all our models. But I want to remind you of something. You don't need to edge highlight everything. Especially for our gaming models, the most important thing are those upward facing surfaces, like on the shoulders and in the head, maybe even the arms and weapons, where our eyes are naturally going to be drawn. Just edge highlight those things. Next, make sure to wick off some of the paint and the moisture that's on it from your brush before you start edge highlighting. If there's too much on there, it's just going to spill over and not give you a nice crisp edge to that highlight. And while we're talking about paint and edge highlighting, I encourage you not to make the paint too thin for this, for 2 reasons. 1, if the paint is too thin, it's going to be very transparent, and all that work in edge highlighting is going to kind of fade away as the paint dries. And 2, the thinner the paint, the harder it is to control when we put it on the model. We don't want it so thick that it globs everywhere, but we don't want it too thin. And finally, a couple of quick things about the brush itself. We don't want to ever edge highlight with the tip of the brush, always the side of it. This is going to make your job a lot easier. You're just going to have to find that right angle for it to just slide over the edge you're trying to paint. And speaking of angle, don't be afraid to move the model around to find the right angle to edge highlight. Don't feel that the model has to be this completely unmovable object and the brush needs to conform to whatever odd angle it needs to fit at. You'll see in my edge highlighting here, I've got the model moved all over the place to make it easiest for me to have a nice smooth stroke. Tip number 2 is boosting your colors. Look, if you're anything like me, you like a little gritty and grimdark in your miniature painting, but even in those situations, having a boosted area or a certain specific detail that is really vibrant will really make your model stand out at the tabletop level. For example here, our captain's helmet. I'm going to make sure that I mix in some yellows into that orange to really boost up the vibrancy so my eye is drawn to it. It's important that we have little interests of color throughout our models at the table. Now, when you're working with vibrant colors like yellows and oranges, they're going to tend to be a little bit more transparent naturally. This means you may have to build up over a number of coats to really get that vibrancy to pop, but at the end of the day, it's going to be worth it. Tip number 3 is scratches and battle damage, and I love these for a number of reasons. First of all, it kind of lets you get away with not doing so much building up of highlights on your models. You just use a slightly brighter color and make those scratches in those areas of highlights, and it will naturally boost up the appearance of your models. The other reason I really like them is that they really hide mistakes. Look, if I have a little bit of a pooled wash somewhere or my blend on that shoulder pad wasn't very good, just throwing a bunch of scratches on top will make it look cool and you will completely miss the mistakes that I made underneath. Now, when you're doing these scratches, there's a couple of important things you need to keep in mind. First of all, you need to make sure you're using a brush with a very sharp tip. And number 2, you need to make sure that your paint is properly thinned. If it's too thick, it's going to dry on that tiny tip of your brush before you ever get the scratch to come off. Tip number 4 is the magic of pigment powders. They're great because they allow me to spend much less time on my basing and really still make them look great. I just throw whatever colors look interesting to me. There's a bunch of options out there. It's even good to have them creep up the side of the boots and the legs of the model, and it makes it feel like the model itself is in the same universe on which it stands. It's a great little tip. Now, if you want to make sure that your pigments are fixed and won't ever leave that place, whenever you do your final varnish for your models before they hit the table, that'll put those pigments right where they need to be and they won't go anywhere. And finally, tip number 5 is simple flames and fire. Flames and fire are something that are often found on Games Workshop models, and to be able to pull this off quickly and simply is a great thing and really draws interest at the table. The key thing is that we always want to start from a pure white, and we are going to build up from there. Once we have our pure white base coat established, we start with yellows. And we try to keep some of that white, or mostly white, still exposed in the most deepest recesses of flames. The inner part of the flame is the brightest, and the brightest is always the whitest. So we build up from yellows, add a little orange to our yellow, then we go up to full orange, closer towards the tip. And then at the end, I like to add more of like a burnt reddish orange, not a full red. And there we go. Those are our 5 tips. I hope some of them were helpful for you and they can aid you in your ongoing quest to slay the gray. If you like this video, you can check out more of my mini painting tutorials over on my YouTube channel. Catch you later, ploppers. You know, I'm told that if he loses the match with these Angels Revenant, his opponent gets to keep them. No pressure. You better not lose, Steve.